Hello, my name is Alun, and today I'm facilitating a one-shot of a game called A Warning to the Curious. This is by Scott at Trollish Delver Games, um, and it's based around some of the mechanics of Cthulhu Dark. And this is a one-shot set in early 1901, when four scholars, as player characters are described, um, are heading out for a January break prior to the start of the university term, where they all work because they're scholars. So, all I'm going to say is that this game is facilitated, as are all my games online, by the Open Hearth gaming community. We have a calendar. And if you don't know about Open Hearth, type Open Hearth into Google and you will find us and come play with us. So this is a game, as I say, about called A Warning to the Curious, and it is about it's the genre is are the ghost stories of M.R. James, in which scholars, overeducated scholars from some fusty university, are going to be drawn into a mystery in the small town stroke large village of Raith-by-Spilsby, on the coast of somewhere in the east of England. I've kind of in my mind. Um, what the game says, what the book says, it's quite a small, slim book. It's really good. This is a game that thrives on a creeping atmosphere of suspense and horror as the scholars fall deeper into the wretched darkness beyond the comprehension of good, God-fearing folk. Whatever eerie and macabre situation they stumble upon, they will be unable to resist investigating it. By the end of the session, we will hope to have crafted a session that leaves them praying they will see the light of the sun once more. So that's what we're pitching at, folks. We are using a set of safety tools. All of these players have played with the Open Hearth before, so I'm going to assume some understanding of lines and veils and the X card. We're also playing with an open door, so if this turns out not to be the kind of game that you thought it was going to be, don't waste the rest of your afternoon, or in Mike's case, the night. And we'll also be playing within the Open Hearth community's code of conduct, which we think creates a really positive and welcoming table culture. So with that in mind, let me go, for lack of any other imagination, from right to left on the character keeper. So, Sabine, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and introduce us to Hadrian Barrow.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sabine. I use any pronouns, and I'm going to play Hadrian Barrow. He, him pronouns. Hadrian Barrow is an art historian. Hadrian Barrow has an unshakable belief in himself. Some people might call him arrogant. He does not see it that way. And that is, of course, the more important and sane choice. Hadrian has accidentally killed a stranger. This was not intentional. The statue that he was leaning on was not fixed to the roof. It fell down, it killed the deacon, and there was a bit of a kerfluffle, and he does not talk about the time he spent in jail. He was exonerated eventually anyway, so everything's fine. Everything's fine with him.
Thank you very much. Moving along, Paul, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and introduce us to Marmaduke Hussey.
Hello, I'm Paul, pronouns he, him, and the character I'm playing is Marmaduke Hussey, also he, him. Marmaduke is one of the theology professors at the university, a strong belief in God. He has a horrific injury to his face, where he's involved in a childhood accident involving an electric fire. So sort of half of his face is melted. There has been some reconstruction surgery. Yeah, that's Marmaduke.
Thank you very much. Moving on, Donna, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and introduce us to George Aldthorpe.
Hey, my name is Donna. My pronouns are he, him. I'll be playing George, also he, him, who is a doctor of medieval studies at this university. I think with a specialty in Anglo-Saxon, especially early Anglo-Saxon historiographies. His unshakable belief is that it's always darkest before dawn, which he has some experience in due to his near-death experience, having been buried alive in his youth. We tend not to dwell on the reason for that, which was drinking unwisely from a ancient buried amphora, which had something, I don't know, necrotic. Who knows? Anyway, he's better now, and does not hang around in graveyards.
I'll just write down graveyard. And finally, Mike, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and introduce us to Vincent Ward III.
I just imagine you circling the word graveyard in the notes. Yeah, my name's Mike. I'm using he, him pronouns. I'm playing Professor Vincent Ward III, who is the professor of archaeology. He was recently involved in the Boer War, and where his entire unit went out on patrol and didn't come back, and they were declared missing in action. And then several days after that, 2 men, including Vincent, walked back into camp, and neither of them have ever discussed what happened in the missing time.
And what's his unshakable belief then?
Oh yes, he fully believes the universe is looking out for him, which is a distinct entry from God is always on your side. So that's an interesting thing to explore.
Exactly. So you all work at the same fusty university somewhere in England, or maybe Scotland, and you are taking this break together. Now, Raith-by-Spilsby has a monastery and a castle. Is there anyone who would like to particularly express an interest or explain the reason they're here, related to either castle, monastery, or both?
Oh, the castle has these amazing friezes. They're pretty old, but yes, I have come to look at them, and I think these are not ancient friezes, but the castle owner recently, I think, renovated the castle, threw out all the old stuff that nobody cares about except for maybe Professor Aldthorpe, and have made new friezes that are amazing, I tell you.
Right. So a renovated castle with new friezes. Would anyone like to express an interest in the monastery and tell me why? Oh, go ahead, Marmaduke.
The monastery, there is evidence that it's been built over a Anglo-Saxon or even older religious site, and now sits in ruin itself.
Oh, right. So we've got a ruined monastery. Professor Aldthorpe, does any of that tie into a reason why you have come along on this trip to Raith?
Well, I mean, there's active vandalism that Hadrian has just mentioned, which obviously maybe an archaeologist friend of mine wants to do some digging. I mean, there's a midden there that we should go through anyway, so there'll be pottery aplenty, and maybe some reconstructive sketches to investigate the Vandals.
Okay. And finally, Professor Ward, any interest in any of those threads?
I am interested in whatever the monastery has been built on. I suspect that it doesn't fit with what we know of the history of the region. Something's been discovered there that shouldn't be there.
Surprising finds. Okay. So let's put you on the train, not far from Raith. George, what are you and Vincent, Professor Ward, discussing about Raith on arrival? Is there agreement about this? What's gone on? Sorry, no, it's not. It's Professor Hussey and Professor Ward are talking about the monastery and what might be underneath it. Do you have separate views, or are your views on this consistent. Let's hear a conversation. Oh, Paul, you may be speaking, but you are muted.
There is absolutely no evidence of anything predating Anglo-Saxon. I don't know why your obsession then for something even older exists on this site.
The Anglo-Saxons just simply did not build things the way that has been described to me from the few diagrams that I've seen. Nothing. Sure, the materials look right, but they didn't build that way.
Quite possibly, but with no evidence of what built it if the Anglo-Saxons didn't. You are merely clutching at straws, my friend. And this is going to end in your reputation being smeared, I fear.
No evidence will be found until somebody investigates the site.
Well, that is what we're here for. A stroll around the site
progress.
Hopefully we shall find something. I hear there was an archaeological dig last year at the site.
Yes.
Well, we may find something.
What about... Oh, Sabine, can you add your character name to the Zoom window? Dr. Aldthorpe. Is Hadrian Barrow, is he a doctorate? Is he a professor? Is he
I
Mr.
think he's
Barrow?
a professor. He's a professor.
Professor Barrow. So,
yes.
Dr. Aldthorpe and Professor Barrow, what do you have to talk about? Because on the one hand, it seems to me that Hadrian is quite interested in these friezes that have been created by the new owner, whereas Dr. Aldthorpe, you talked about vandalism. So let's hear some of that conversation.
Let me rephrase it. The vandalism happened in the Regency area because that's when people were just doing that. So Hadrian is quite effulgent about the Regency people tearing down the old and putting in the new, as you should at the dawn of a new age. While I will admit that there are some old masters that are quite interesting. Personally, I like the Regency area and their art and their take on the surroundings.
I mean, I am drinking a cup of tea in order to hide my anger at this apologism from Professor Barrow. I cannot believe that a serious academic would forgive these crimes just because it was the height of our British political and artistic magnificence. They could have built a new castle. Who needs castles anyway in 1804, you know? Napoleon, I mean, he wasn't up to much.
Any deference, George, around Hadrian being a professor and you not?
Well, we're in different departments, so
yes,
that hardly counts.
It does not.
Anyone could get to be a professor in art history, obviously.
Well, I didn't want to say it.
Not everyone can. Not everyone can.
Only one person can become professor of art history.
It is quite a cutthroat environment if you want. But my
niche, I would have said niche.
Oh, that's harsh. I mean, I know that medieval history is a bit is always looking behind itself and not looking to the future, because art history, however, is always connected to the present and the art experienced now compared to the art experienced by our forebears. And thus we have a much closer relationship to our present.
And I think that conversation is interrupted as the train slows down. You can hear the screech of the brakes come on, and you pull into the station at Raith-by-Spilsby, where you have booked rooms in Mrs. Hopkins' boarding house ahead of time. Do you walk into the village, or do you take the pony and trap that's on offer at the station? I think I'm going to ask Professor Hussey, because looking at the pictures, you look to be the oldest of our scholars. Although I'm not convinced that Hadrian doesn't dye his hair. So Marmaduke,
Slander. This is pure slander.
walk in or pony and trap?
I think pony and trap. Walking's for the lower class.
Does everyone join Professor Hussey, or do some of you prefer to walk in at dusk?
I think I prefer to walk. I will not make anything of Professor Hussey's comment about the lower class. No, taking a walk across the countryside is what a gentleman does. I will, however, send my luggage with the pony and trap.
Of course, of course. George, what about you? Walk or pony and trap?
Well, I was about to suggest a walk, since a pony and trap will hardly take 4. But then if Hadrian is going along, I mean, that might just be to foment further arguments. So yes, I will definitely walk.
And what about Vincent?
So we got two for walk, 1 for trap. I will join in the trap.
Fine. So the pony and trap, along with the collected luggage. And I'm just checking I don't get any overlap of names. Peters is your pony and trap driver, and Peters helps you up onto the pony and trap and sets off it. And what's you gentlemen here for? He said, doing a terrible cod countryside accent.
We're here to observe the monastery.
The monastery, you say?
Yes, my fellow. What can you tell us of the monastery?
We don't talk about the monastery, sir.
You're not God-fearing folks.
Because we're God-fearing folks, we don't talk about that place. We call them the ruins.
Yes. Well, we hope to observe and record.
Oh, well, all I would say, sir, is you mind yourself up there.
Dangerous afoot? Is it? Would we be best in daylight?
Young Jamie went up there when I were a boy, and he were never the same after.
Where can we? Oh, very strange. Well, we may have to investigate this. Is there a local expert you could recommend?
Nobody round here talks about the ruins, sir.
Oh, very well. I'll turn to Vince.
I would never have brought up the subject were it not you had said, and I do feel I need to warn you. Vincent, what's your reaction to this bit of conversation?
I think he just thinks it's a bit odd, to be honest.
Hadrian
Peter,
and George. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Are you suggesting that we don't broach the subject with the other people of the town? That it might cause discord amongst the people?
I think this is a fairly low stakes opportunity to engage with the mechanics.
Okay.
You'll find that there's a rules tab. Whenever you need to do something where failure could be interesting, make a task roll. Roll a d6. So you always get a d6. Add 1d6 if your field of study is relevant. I don't think it's relevant. I don't think any academic field of study is going to be relevant to this.
Nope.
And add the 1d8 obsession die if you are prepared to take the risk. If your obsession die rolls 1, then as well as the result that you would get from the roll, you become a victim of your own hubris and mark doom. So I'm interested to see what his reaction is here. So you're rolling a d6 and a d8 if you'd like it, Vincent.
I'm going to take the d8. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
That rolled a
gosh,
bunch more things than I was expecting.
Sorry, that's because I put some on there to for something else. So a 1 and a 3. So that is the best result is a 3. 1 to 3 barely succeeded with a complication.
Okay.
Sir, I will say this most emphatic. Don't talk about the ruins to folk. They will not welcome the conversation. I spend my time ferrying people about, and so I'm a man of the world. And so I've engaged in this conversation out of a sheer desire for you to have as good a time in Slingsby as in Raith as you can have. But other folk won't be as worldly as me.
Thank you very much for the warning, Peters. We will be most circumspect.
Good idea, sir. Good idea. George and Hadrian, you're walking. Did I hear you say you're walking cross country, Hadrian, rather than following the road the pony and trap's on?
I think we will follow the beautiful path that nature has set us. Yes.
There's almost certainly a footpath that goes kind of over the
Yes.
hill.
Yes, I have a walking stick, of course. Not that I need it, but it's kind of what the gentleman does, isn't it?
George, are you continuing with this conversation that you started on the train, or are you looking about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think some element of propriety is going to keep me from our previous conversation for a while at least. So I guess I will enjoy this rambling steeplechase to the village.
And as you come up to the brow of the hill, you see the village below. You can see further up the valley the kind of dark ruins of the monastery. And on the rise beyond the village is this Regency construction. There are aspects of the Brighton Pavilion here. So there's a kind of slightly what's the word I'm looking for? Eastern influence. A kind of some domes and some onion domes have been grafted onto this medieval castle. Hadrian, does that change your view of whether this renovation was a good thing?
Hadrian is charmed. Hadrian is charmed. Look at that. The innovation. I love this. This has been worth the trip, Albeen.
What are you thinking, George?
I mean, if only I'd kept my butter knife from my scone on the train, I'd be gouging my eyes out at this monstrosity. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I am gobsmacked. Gobsmacked, Professor Barrow. You must be proud of what our forebears did.
Quite so. That does this not show the spirit of man to better himself? This shows the part of us that is an angel. He's quite right.
I know we like to think of the 800s as a dark age in this country, but surely the 1800s was worse.
Yes, but this proves that even in our darkest times, there was a ray of sunshine and a ray of hope. Look at this. Is that not brilliant? These onion domes.
And I think as the sun begins to set behind the castle, silhouetted on the rise on which it sits, you can see something is moving along that ridgeline towards the monastery. George, are you at all interested in kind of coming to a conclusion what that is?
Is it set against the setting sun, or am I thinking in the wrong direction?
I think against the setting sun. So it's limed in a kind of orange red.
I mean, I think I'll stop maybe and mask my eyes against the glare and try to make out what it is. But it seems odd to me. Who would be traveling across country at this hour of the night?
And of course, because the sun is behind it, its outline is unclear. So let's see if you can make anything of its outline. So you get 1d6 always. Um, would you say your field of study applies here?
It seems unlikely unless it's
Yeah.
a medieval person.
Would you like to add the d8 obsession die?
Why not? Why not?
Now we've got a d6 and a d8 out there. I'm going to suggest we reuse those.
Yeah,
Simply
I'll
on the
just
grounds
re-roll
that
those.
we're gonna be in difficulty otherwise.
Yeah. Let me select and re-roll them. That is a 7 on the.
Well, success with an added benefit. It's odd. It appears to be moving like a person, but occasionally you can see. And again, this could be just the haze that you're getting, not the haze, the way that the light behind is distorting the silhouette, so it's not sharp. But it's almost as though it sometimes puts his hands on the ground, or this. It's odd, and maybe he's got two sticks. It's odd. What added benefit would you like?
Um, I mean, benefit is a strange word to use. I wonder um, if it looks over at us standing on our ridgeline, and perhaps we get some eye contact, some kind of inkling as to its intelligence, or something along those lines.
It's difficult to tell, but it stops and looks in your direction. And then from elsewhere in the valley, you hear a howl. Or could it have echoed down the valley that runs down to the sea over there? How very odd. I think I'd like to know whether that puts the hairs on the back of either of your necks up. So, Hadrian, there is a thing called a fear roll.
Oh,
Now, I'm not sure you are yet witnessing a horror, but I'm keen to see the mechanic work.
okay.
You get to roll a d6. If d6 ties to your tragic background roll, so you add. So let me get this right. You have a choice. You make a fear roll, or if it's relevant, invoke your unshakable belief. Is your unshakable belief relevant in this circumstance?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, I'm arrogant, self-belief, but I'm not scared by a howling dog. Come on.
I'm going to put a dark d6 out there.
Oh, nice.
Let's make it, I think, purple. There we go. Let me submit that. So now we have a purple dark die, your fear die. You're going to roll the light d6 and the dark d6.
Okay.
Belief is the light, fear is the dark.
Okay. Let's see what
And you
goes.
want to see
Oh,
which
no.
one?
The dark is a lot higher.
Okay. If belief is lower than fear, increase your doom by 2.
Ooh,
Um,
nice.
How does this remind you of your accidental, the death of that stranger?
Um, let's not go with that. No, I think it doesn't remind me of the death of the stranger, but by the when I was arrested for that death, the constable brought his hound, and that was not a nice hound. It bit me. Ever since I have a feeling that dogs are not good creatures, at least not dogs of a certain size. I don't mind lap dogs, but bigger dogs are not. So I will shiver just a little, just
Um,
and say, Professor Aldthorpe, I think there might be a wild dog on the loose. We should post haste get to the village and take a bit of brandy, maybe.
George, shall we see what impact that had on you before we decide whether you need that sip of
Yeah.
brandy?
So I'm rolling the same 2 dice, right?
Or you could make a fear roll. you roll a d6, add a d6 if the horror ties to your tragic background, and check the highest against the table below. So you've got two options whenever you are faced by something horrific.
Yeah, I don't think it connects with my unshakable belief, because it's the wrong time of night. It's the start of night, not right before dawn. So I guess I'm doing fear.
Okay.
And I don't think it connects with my tragic background either.
Okay, so a simple d6 then.
So just 1d6. That's a 3.
1 to 3, you rationalize the horror. So how do you rationalize this, and how do you express this to Professor Barrow?
And I think the mention of a dog is something that I can even though at the back of my mind I know that it was just one creature, I say, well, someone's out bringing their dog for a walk. Obviously, the dog every so often jumps up to put its front paws on its owner. It's too excited for this, but I say, well, let's hope that dog is on the leash, Professor Barrow. You're right, we should make tracks.
And I think then we'll cut to Mrs. Hopkins' boarding house, where George and Hadrian will arrive to find Vincent and Marmaduke already seated at her dinner table, about to eat their supper. Hadrian, are you still jittery or?
Oh no. This is I'm a British professor. Come on, I am not jittery. The insinuation. I'm appalled. No, I'm not jittery. I will, however, take a swig of brandy, just because it was cold or cool outside.
Do you take that when you arrive around the table with the others, or have you taken it?
No, I will take it when I arrive. I feel my hunger is I'm not that hungry, and looking at the food here, I am not that hungry anyway. I do detest green beans.
What's the subject of conversation, Vincent? Is this about planning what you're going to do tomorrow, or up to you?
Yeah, I think we need to. Are we breaking up into two teams to investigate the two
It's
sites, or
entirely
do
up
we
to you.
intend to? Oh, that is the topic of conversation.
Fine.
Shall we, all four of us, go to one side and then the other, or should we split up? And how much time do we have here anyway?
Oh, as much time as you like. Term doesn't start for a fortnight, so plenty of time to be doomed.
I wonder, do Vincent and Marmaduke share the warning from our local cabbie?
That's what I was wondering.
Well, it really
Mrs.
depends
Hopkins
whether
present?
these.
Well, hang on. Vincent made a start.
Is Mrs. Hopkins present, or has she served a meal and retired?
She'll serve
for
a
the evening?
meal and then retire if that's convenient.
All right. We had the most fascinating conversation with our driver on the way up. He suggested that we not discuss the ruins of the monastery. He said the locals refer to it as simply the ruins, and that we shouldn't bring it up with any of the townsfolk. Apparently, they're quite touchy about the subject. There was a young lad had an experience up there at some point as a youth, and it seems that it's put a bit of a spine tingler into people.
Do you think this incident with the youth was the source of this unease, or merely one instance of it?
Have to be in a serious incident to, I think, jitter the rest of the town. But we do have the young gentleman's name.
Young Jamie.
So being warned off not to discuss the matter with anyone, we should go straight for the bull, right? That's
Well, it saves messing around with the other townsfolk. Rather than annoying 10 people, we may just annoy one.
I'm not sure. A child falling in a hole and being frightened of the dark and then having nightmares for a few weeks. What is he going to tell us that we wouldn't find out simply by going and checking out the site ourselves?
And gaining our own evidence, which is crucial. That's why I bought the Kodak.
Ah,
so perhaps to maintain our own independence from bias, we should forthwith to the ruin and see what we see.
Adrian?
Yes. Without being prejudiced by the local townsfolk too much. I think we should heed these warnings and not discuss unless we have to. But yes, I'm all in favour for physically going to the ruins. First, yes, the ruins.
Yes, let's go to the ruins first. Let's save the better part for later, because I'm pretty sure the ruins are not going to be very fascinating. However, this rumor makes them a little titillating that might provoke some interest. Yes, I will accompany you to those ruins. Maybe there is something to be seen there.
George?
Capital. I mean, I'm interested to see whether there's anything before the Anglo-Saxons. I know there's some. I couldn't help but overhear some disagreement on the train between my two fellows.
You've influenced somebody already, Vincent.
you shall be first in my list of peer reviewers once I'm ready to publish. I'm sure the opinion of the Professor of Medieval Studies will be invaluable.
Do we want to do anything else that evening, or should I cut to the following morning on your way to the ruins or at the ruins?
I mean, I think we'll have to investigate the state of the liquor cabinet, but nothing substantial, you know.
So let's.
Maybe one thing. Maybe we could ask Mrs. What was her name again?
Mrs. Hopkins.
Hopkins, about, because I'm a little worried, at least, about the owners of any large dogs in the village.
Yeah, okay. And she says, "Did you hear a dog howling, sir?"
Oh yes, while we were coming home, we heard the howl, a very distinct howl of a dog. Certainly it's nothing, but I was just wondering, it sounded quite large.
She goes white and steadies herself on a chair. Oh,
are you all right, my dear?
Excuse me, and I've left something on the hob, and she leaves the dining room at pace.
Wasn't that odd?
It certainly was.
No,
Hadrian.
I'm asking my fellow.
No, but yeah, it certainly was, Hadrian, and I think that brings home to you the idea that there is more to this dog than meets the eye. George's reassurance, this is just somebody walking their dog. So I think that's a bit worrying, Hadrian.
Huh.
Would you like to make a fear roll?
Again?
If it relates to your tragic background, which it appears to, this dog. So I think it ties to your tragic background.
Okay.
So you're rolling 2d6 this time.
Okay. The light one and the dark one?
Both of them.
Both of them. Okay.
You're looking for the highest number on those two.
It's the light one. It's a 5.
It's a 5. Or 4 to 5. You're shaken.
Again.
Hadrian, increase your doom by 1.
Okay, I think I'm gonna be doomed before we even leave this in.
I'm just thinking of tragic backgrounds. Vincent, you've never talked about what happened in South Africa during the Boer War when you were missing with your unit. Was there a dog involved or a wild animal of any kind?
Yes, I think there were strange calls in the night that were probably caused by, I'm trying to think of where we are in the world, hyenas?
Yeah. So I think I'd like you to make a fear roll as well, please. And it does sound like it ties to your tragic background. So you're rolling 2d6 and looking for the highest number.
How do I?
Oh, so click on which each one you're interested in rolling.
Yep.
And then you'll see a green button, reroll selected. Exactly so.
Right.
So the highest is a 4. You're shaken, increase your doom by 1. Yes, that's not terribly nice. I'm not sure that it ties to being buried alive or a fire. So I don't think it has any effect on Marmaduke and George, but I think you see the effect on your colleagues. Do either of you have any reaction to Mrs. Hopkins and her clear disturbance?
I mean, I think I will remark, possibly just to Marmaduke, that in these parts we see many folk legends about the black dog, fearful superstitions, and the like, which doubtless have been here since Gildas himself. It's very curious.
Yes, it seems very similar to the Norfolk and Suffolk legend of Black Shook. And we are in the East. I could easily see how a folk tale as such could have easily spread around these parts. But to worry a local so much?
Well, howls at dusk and dawn do have particular portent throughout these isles.
Can I just inquire of Hadrian and Vincent, how comfortable you are with your colleagues carrying on this conversation on the dinner table, given the effect that it's had on you?
Information is better than no information. I'm listening rapidly. Also, I have ordered another round of brandy for all of us.
Yes, would you pass the brandy, would you there, Hadrian?
Yeah, of course.
It is a chill evening after all.
It is, isn't it?
I think Mrs. Hopkins will certainly have left a bottle of port on the table.
Oh, then we will partake of that.
Sorry, I interrupted George and Marmaduke.
I think, George, what we could do was seeking out more educated and possibly travelled people within the village. Maybe the church warden or the priest could possibly shed a more educated view without it ruffling them, hopefully, so much. The church rotates priests quite often. I would find it hard to believe that a man of God has been sucked into local folklore and legends.
Indeed, but I wonder if this parish or this church warrants more than a curate. But you're right, of course. Maybe we'll find someone rational here.
Yes, rational should lead the charge, I believe, to debunk people that fall to a curious folklore. Do you agree, Vincent?
Yes. A rational
seem to be
mind.
staring at the bottom of that brandy glass. Here, have a port instead. Slightly.
Thank you. Yes.
Go.
Rational minds should prevail, certainly. If we can find such a one in such a superstitious little town.
Yes, well, we could definitely go to the church post our visit in the morning to the ruins. Clearly, if somebody sleeps on it and comes up with another idea, I think that would be. We can discuss it over breakfast. I feel, and I'll yawn at this stage. It has been a frightfully long day, and I am quite eager to turn in.
Well, yes, let's turn in. Before then, I would propose a toast to the rational minds prevailing. To rational minds.
The rational
And
minds.
Rational minds.
we will cut to the following morning, where you're finishing up breakfast, and Mrs. Hopkins appears to have recovered some of her, has become rather calmer than when last you saw her. You didn't see her again before you retired, um, but she is subdued, I think it's fair to say. In terms of rational minds, we've a suggestion that the local vicarage might be a place to look. And Hadrian, you know something of that castle renovation. It was renovated by the Hamilton family, and your kind of pre-reading has revealed that Sir Geoffrey Hamilton currently is the current elder scion of that family. So you might expect the local landowner to be more rational than these country bumpkins.
Yes, I mean, the castle does suggest a very strict rational mind, after all. Sorry. Hadrian is not laughing. Hadrian thinks the castle's the bee's knees, but yeah.
But the suggestion was you were going to look, visit the ruins. But are you now thinking about rational minds? Marmaduke, what are you thinking?
Like all things in this great isle, the weather shall decide clearly. Don't want to be tramping around ruins in the rain.
It's clear and cold.
Well, I think now is a good time as ever to venture towards the ruins.
Vincent, ruins or a rational mind? What are you going to examine?
The best time to explore a ruin is 100 years ago, but the second best time is right now.
George?
Yeah, I mean, talking to people who are proud of that monstrosity is not on my list of things to do, except maybe sternly. So I will be of no use in that expedition. I'll go to the ruins. Maybe stopping off at the vicarage if we pass it.
And finally, Hadrian.
Oh, I think the ruins, last night was a bit of a fright, I will admit, to myself, not to anybody else. But in the morning, I'm thinking rational minds is where it's at, and I have absolutely a rational mind. So I do not see any point in being worried about this dog thing. However, I would like to see these ruins, and I would like to remain in the company of my fellow professors, not because I'm worried, but just because for the camaraderie, right? Because rational minds and all that jazz. So yeah, I will accompany them to see the ruins. Maybe there is some art to be found there.
And so I think what we'll see then is the four of you wrapped up against the cold. There are three roads out of the village. There's the one that goes back to the railway station. There's the one that goes up the hill to the castle, and there's the one that heads up the valley towards the ruins. And we'll see you head in that direction because you can see the church spire at that end of the village as well. So we'll see you walking up there, and then we'll cut to Mrs. Hopkins upstairs at the boarding house, just looking out through the net curtains and shaking her head. And we'll go to our first commercial break. Shall I suggest that we are back in our seats for this first one? Let's have a decent break. Back at 10 past the hour?
Sounds good.
See you then. We come back from our commercial break to find our four intrepid scholars approaching the church. Marmaduke, you're the theologian, aren't you?
Indeed, Gus.
I'm curious what you learn just from the look of the church. So I think I'd like you to make a task roll based on your theological knowledge. So that's 2d6, and you can add the d8 if you'd like to.
Why not? 5 on the.
As long as that 8 doesn't come up 1, it's just a big number. So 5, successful at the task. This was a church. It's a medieval church, and I might come to our medieval scholar in a moment. But what's interesting, it shows all the signs of having a radical makeover by Puritans. So you can see where it once had quite large stained glass windows, and they are now clear. And you notice that some of the more, the grander tombs in the graveyard have been defaced. So it looks like, yeah, a radical Puritan makeover in the 1600s. Sorry, no, it's not George. Who's our medievalist? It is George. I beg your pardon, George. Are you interested in this at all?
Yeah, one can't help but admire an English country church, right? But yeah, I wonder if there's anything based on the alignment or maybe the style of steeple or the independent steeple, which might give us some indication as to when this was founded or anything like that. So yeah, I guess I could take a gander.
So yeah, I think as you're standing there admiring it, you hear a voice behind the 4 of you. Ah, yes. All the elegance of Chaucer with none of the concomitant absurdities. My west window is really quite charming. One could only imagine what it was once like. And you turn to see the Reverend Hayes, the local vicar.
Oh, pleased to meet you, Reverend.
I'm very pleased to meet you.
I am Professor of Theology, Marmaduke Hussey.
Oh, I say, how very jolly. And then he looked to the other 3 of you for introductions.
Oh yes, I will introduce my friends. This is Professor Ward. This is Professor Barrow, and this is Professor Aldthorpe, all from the university.
Oh, I say, how very blessed we are to have such eminent visitors. Can I show you around the church at all?
Any time in a house of God is good time.
Entirely my view. Not a view shared by some people these days, you know. Do come. Do join me. Hadrian, are you particularly interested in medieval churches made over by Puritans?
Yes, I mean it's not quite relevant to the modern taste, but it is always interesting to see history happen as a progression instead of just a thing frozen in time. So I'm always interested in changes.
Hadrian George, does this not remind you of your conversation yesterday about graffiti and making things over? What you were discussing is only a repeat of what has happened here in God's house.
Well, this graffiti is clearly defacing, while the onion steeples on the castle are a refinement. There is a marked difference, is there not?
I'm sure Cromwell would say otherwise.
I'm sure even Cromwell would know that this is vandalism, not art. There is a difference between smearing phrases and pictures of, let's not mention it, on gravestones and, as I said, creating new art. I'm sure there was some art created during the Cromwell era, but I'm afraid there was a marked dearth of major aesthetic movements in that period of time.
Indeed. Yes, well, onwards, the Reverend, please.
Hadrian, I'd like to see if when he's showing you around the church, I wonder if you notice anything that he doesn't point out. So I think art history would be relevant here. So I'd like you to roll 2d6 for the task roll, and you can add the d8 if you'd like it.
Oh, I will absolutely add the D8. I mean, why wouldn't I? And I'm rolling. I can roll the dark and the light, right?
Yeah, they need to be dark and light for the other roll.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
they're
Oh,
just
I've got a 5.
a 5 on a 5, successful task. You notice the graffiti here has been carved into the side of some, the way that in English country churches, the lords of the manor are often, and their wife are often to be found in tombs with a carved knight on the top or something.
Yeah.
And clearly the lords of the manor, the lady of the manor, who were probably the people who built this in the 1200s, they've had their noses knocked off and their faces defaced, and but you notice that carved through the inscription that was originally cut into the side is blessed by God Francis. Clearly the graffiti is carved in rather than written on here.
That is some dedication at least. Blessed by God, Francis. Well, it educate me. What does that mean? Does that mean blessed by God, made by Francis?
I'm so sorry. You really should ignore that, says the vicar. It relates to a very dark event in the village's history.
Yes, but
Now,
who
alternatively, my east window, he is determined not to talk about blessed by God
Yes.
Francis.
I wonder who Francis was.
George?
I mean, a dark period of history is like music to my ears. So I will fish out a torch from my pocket, and shine it up there. And yeah, exactly. Maybe I'll do something like stand on a pew to get a better look, or something very obviously gauche.
Yeah, and it's clear that there are signs that this church wasn't just remade by the Puritans, it was vandalized. You can see where hooks of metal and have been hammered into the joints between the limestone blocks that it's built out of. It's clear to you that not only was it vandalized as a church, it was used for other purposes. Are you interested in knowing what?
Absolutely. I mean, hooks in the walls. I mean, sign me up.
Yeah. So I think medieval. So you've visited enough old churches to have something to work with here. So we'll give you the benefit of your academic study. So 2d6 and a d8 if you'd like it.
I mean, who doesn't like a d8? Do you want the good news or the bad news? The good news for you, rather, is the 1 on the d8, which I believe is substantially bad for me. But then 5s on the regular results.
Okay, so on a 5, successful at the task. But on a 1, if your obsession die rolls 1, then as well as the result above, you become a victim of your own hubris and mark doom. What is it? Because there's evidence this was used as a stable. But there's also the thing that gives you the shivers a bit is that the name blessed by God Francis does mean something to you. It's a bit late for your period, it must be said, but there was a Puritan ranter who went around the country denouncing witches. Vincent, as the vicar is extolling the joy of his east window, and how you can only imagine, there are some records that suggest that it actually showed St. Francis and his beasts. But Vincent, what if anything are you interested in at the church?
Vincent is somewhat livid over the vandalism that has occurred here, because it's pretty hard enough to piece together what happened even 200 years ago without people going and changing things on you.
Let's see if you notice anything, shall we? I think
Yeah.
archaeology, good at spotting things that aren't obvious. So I think 2d6 and a d8 if you'd like it.
Whatever. I can't for some reason. Hang on. I'm going to rejoin the room because the D8 is hiding behind one of the D6s for me, and I can't select it. Even after I refresh, it's doing that.
You can just grab it and move it.
Yeah, if you highlight it, you should be able to click and hold and move.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
It is one of the weaknesses of the dice room. We're only using it because Roll With Me is currently not behaving. So, what do we got?
I've got a 3, a 6, and an 8.
Well, that is 6 plus success with an added benefit.
Shows. And a double.
Blessed by God, Blessed by God, Francis makes it quite difficult to discover what exactly the inscription that was originally on the side of this tomb said. But it you can make out you think a Darcy, something like that is the name of the Lord of the Manor. What extra benefit would you like? You want to notice something and tell me what you notice, or it's up to you?
Yeah, I wonder if there's... evidence that these are cleaned frequently, but the reason this is hard to read is because it's full of dust. Like, somebody deliberately leaves this untouched.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd because clearly there is some effort made to keep the rest of the church looking fairly spick and span. But these two tombs, the Darcy of maybe Sir somebody Darcy and the wife, they're not looked after. They sit, at the back of the church, ignored. Marmaduke, any final questions for the vicar?
Yes, Vicar. The ruins, and I will take a long pause to study his face.
Well, I don't think that relates to your field of study, but it's certainly one where failure could be interesting. So let's have a D6 and a D8 if you want it.
Yeah, why not? Let's. That D8 is always good. A 5 and a 3.
5. There's a flicker. And he says, yes, the monastery. Yes. Not a lot to see up there, frankly.
It was a place of worship at some stage.
Indeed, but it was very early in Henry VIII's reign that they sold off almost all of it. So as I say, very, very, very little to see. Much more interesting to go and there's a nice walk along the coast.
Just relevant a conversation we had yesterday, is young Jamie one of your flock?
Who
Jamie,
yes,
young man,
yes,
small hands.
Yes, young Jamie. Who mentioned young Jamie?
It's just passing by conversation in the pub.
Very good. Yes. Yes. It's a very sad case. He's not at all well.
Well, in body or spirit?
It must be said, frankly, neither.
Oh, tragic indeed.
Yes. Yes, nasty accident as a child.
Well, one of my friends here is a doctor, and they are trying to research a new tincture. Possibly we could see young Jamie at some stage and see if this would revive him.
I suppose so, yes.
Excellent. With your endorsement, we will make it so. Thank you very much, Reverend, and I will clasp his hand with both of mine and give it a firm shake. Well done, Reverend. Well done. A man of science indeed.
Well, yes, jolly good show. Well, as I say, do enjoy the walk. The coastal walk is very, very nice. Very, very lovely views. Lovely views.
Speaking of coastal walks, we heard a dog howl last night. Are there any dogs run off or something? It seemed to discombobulate our hostess a little.
I think I'm very interested to see what his reaction to that is now. So you can roll a D6 and add a D8 if you would like, Hadrian.
Yes, well, I will do that. Maybe I get more doom. Nope, it's 4 all along.
4. He maintains his composure, but he's clear that this is a conversation he now feels the need to end. Yes, many of the farms around the village have dogs. But my goodness me, is that the time? I really must get back. Preparation for a sermon.
Jolly good.
Lovely to see you all, and as he heads away, and as I say, a coastal walk, delightful, and heads off to the vicarage.
That was a peculiar nervous vicar.
He seems to have succumbed to some of the things that were affecting the village. He may have been here too long. I may draft a letter to the deacon.
Well, yes, quite a lot of superstition in these parts, isn't there?
Well, it is rural East Anglia.
Yes.
Not much comes well from rural East Anglia, but there are worse places.
Yes.
Hull.
Oh, terrible. I absolutely agree with you. Hull is the worst. Not the worst. There are worse places, but let's not talk about that.
Yes. Onwards. Well, the ruins beckon, but by the coastal path, shall we say?
The coastal path, just for reference, is in entirely opposite direction.
And that's why we're not going to go on the coastal path.
So yes, do we see you continuing to the ruins, or has any of this thrown up other interests?
I'm happy to discuss while we move towards the ruins, out of earshot of the vicar. I would suggest.
Oh, the vicar's gone.
He was gone.
Yeah. The door of the vicarage slams behind him.
He was clearly troubled, but he has given us access to young Jamie. I mean, I do apologise for using one of your names in vain there to suggest you were indeed a doctor. But
I am a doctor. I don't know how you can apologise for telling the truth.
A doctor of medicine, shall I say?
That's not a real doctor. I think we all can agree.
God can cure everything, not share men with potions.
So are all 4 of you then seen heading up the valley on the road that turns off a track to the ruins? And it must be said that as you get a little closer, there's more to these ruins than just some stones in the ground. These have not been knocked back to just a set of foundations. There is some structure here, but clearly not much. What do you do? Do you stick together? Do you spread out around the site to see what you can see, or what?
It's well lit. Nobody here, I take?
And not a sign.
I would be happy to cover more ground, my fellows, by at least breaking down into pairs.
I think I will go poke around. I don't think there is anything to worry about. And my interests might be different from yours. And I have a walking stick. should any ghost jump out on me.
Sure, we'll be fine, but
go ahead.
please try not to disturb too much. The thing about ruins is they tend to be more ruined over time.
Yes, that is the nature of time. The ravages of time. I will compose a poem about this while I'm at it.
So, did I hear pairs mentioned? I think probably George and Hadrian are going to split up because whenever they're together, there's a little tension, is my sense.
I mean, I'm biting my lip to say don't lean on anything as you wander, Hadrian.
Well, I mean, yeah, I must admit, I believe Hadrian's particular academic area is not well served here, and therefore would not serve me very well. Where both Vincent and quite possibly George have skill sets in this area, so I'm eager to pair with either of them.
Well, on the grounds that I don't think George is going to be keen to go with Hadrian, this is either Marmaduke, Vincent, and George, and Hadrian, or this is George and Marmaduke and Vincent and Hadrian. How does this? Because I think George very swiftly moves in Marmaduke's direction.
It depends whether Vincent really wants to make sure Hadrian doesn't commit any heinous acts against the abbey, or he's happy with just the warning that he issued.
Hadrian is quite happy to wander off by himself. He will keep an eyesight, earshot of the others, of course.
Of course, yeah. I mean, this site covers perhaps 100 yards by 100 yards.
Yeah.
So 100 meters by 100 meters. So it's not a vast site.
Exactly.
And there are a couple of places where there's enough structure left to put you out of sight of one another, but you're never going to be out of calling distance.
Exactly.
Could possibly go wrong for an individual wandering by themselves.
Exactly. What could go wrong? We are all rational men here, are we not?
This is England, sir.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the Empire ensures you are safe at home and abroad.
Well.
George, Vincent, and Marmaduke, do the three of you stick together, or having gone off together, do you divide up?
I will stick with either of those two because they have knowledge of this site. So
I guess I need to know if George and Vincent are going to stick together, or whether one of you wants to go off on your own as well. I'm just curious.
I'm happy to stick with them.
I'm happy to wander off. Maybe I go down an archaeological or architectural rabbit hole. That's of interest to me. But yeah, I'll be closer to them.
Shall we begin by discovering whether Vincent goes down an archaeological rabbit hole? So, yes. Vincent, let's have you make a task roll. I think that your field of study is relevant here because it's a set of ruins. So 2d6, the d8 if you'd like it.
I'm absolutely obsessed. I will roll the d8. I had a 7.
Yeah. So on success with an added benefit. Okay. I think that what you will find is that the demolition here, because that's what's gone on, is in two stages. There is the initial kind of destruction by Henry VIII and his agents that will have taken lead off the roofs and stone sold off a building and anything of value taken off for the crown. But there is, on the edge of the site, there are two walls of what you think was a surviving structure, a small structure, maybe some kind of stone outhouse or porter's lodge, don't know. But it had survived, if not intact, then more intact than the rest of the monastery until much later. And And I think I'm going to tell you what your added benefit here is that you think that it was fire damaged between the abolition of the monasteries and modern times. And there are signs of scorch marks on the stone, and maybe even fragments of charred wood in the vicinity. Marmaduke, when Vincent shares the fact that this was destroyed by fire, what's your reaction?
I
Do you
will
cling
step.
to your are you reminded of your tragic background, or do you
Yes, and I will
your
step
unshakable
behind
belief?
Vincent and say, clearly, what has gone here goes against God himself. This is tragic. Burning a religious site, reducing it to cinder. This is.
That's the rational part of your mind. Let's see what the less rational part of your mind does in response to this reminder of your tragic background. So 2d6, no d8.
Five on the light dice.
You are shaken. Increase your doom by 1. Because there's in the moment, Marmaduke, you hear the kind of crackling of fire and screams just momentarily, and you're uncertain whether that's a memory of you screaming, but that's what you were reminded of. Meanwhile, Hadrian, you're wandering around. To be honest, it's rather dull from an art history point of view.
Yes, I was afraid of that, but I can just poke around, see if I can make George nervous.
Well, strangely, George sneaks up behind you and says, I don't feel good about this place.
Ah, well, pish pash, George, this is going to be fine.
Except George isn't there.
Well, weird. Huh. Could have sworn. Well, maybe that was a little too much brandy last night.
I don't think. Do you want to make a fear roll, or do you want to cling to your unshakable belief?
I will cling to my unshakable belief.
Which remind me is,
I think it's arrogant self-belief.
of course it
Yes.
is, that you must have.
Yes.
Maybe he shouted. So this time you are rolling dark and light d6s, and you're looking for the light one to come out on top.
Okay, let's see about that. It has come on top with a 3.
Okay, so if belief is equal to or higher than fear, decrease doom by 1.
Huh.
Bloody silly thing.
Yeah.
George, what are you doing? Because this site is of more potential interest to you and your scholarship.
Well, I'm recalling the notes I cribbed from Professor Ward about his suspicion regarding an earlier than Anglo-Saxon formation on this site. So I'm looking for some signs that might hint at an inner level of foundations, maybe that have been subsumed or something like this.
I like that. So let's have you roll. A scholarship is relevant. So 2d6 and a d8 if you'd like it.
Let's go for it. Another one on a d8, but a 6 on my expertise. So
okay, doom goes up by 1, but on a 6, yes, there is, because you know how these ruins should be organized, even if you're just looking at some in some cases just foundations. And there's clearly some structure that isn't lying on that east-west axis that you'd expect of a Christian church or a Christian endowment. And you're following this line, and it leads to a corner of the site where you see Marmaduke just kind of backing away from a structure. What's the extra benefit you want?
I mean, do you think with the Doom track, do I get some inkling as to what the ritual purpose of this corner of the original structure might have been?
I think you would date it to Roman times. And you're not certain until you come across a stone which has been reused in the building of the monastery. And it's a picture, it's a carving of Janus, the two-faced god.
And I think I will call Marmaduke over. Professor Hussey, this may be of some interest to you.
Let's move away from here into the light. I should be able to get a better view on it.
Well,
this place worries me, my friend.
It's a relief, Marmaduke, because George is about 20 yards away, which is away from this structure where Vincent has identified that it was burned down. So away you go.
Head over to George, yes. Vincent, I'll see you. I'm just going to see George. George, yes. What do you have? Something of my interest, you said?
Well, my gut instinct was, or maybe my hope was something Mithras oriented, but look here, a relief of Janus, that two-faced Roman god.
Yeah, two-faced indeed. Similar to what we seem to be experiencing here. Very worrying. I mean, this could prove Vincent's theory all along, that this predates. Yes, worrying indeed. A site built on top of a site on top of a site, with heresy being performed here at various stages in time. Oh.
Well,
Vincent,
I mean, a
while
site
I want to take a cut on that moment and cut back to Vincent. What are you doing in that more complete structure? Probably it's about 10 paces. Might have been square. The walls on two sides are still 8 or 10 feet high. The rest are crumbled inwards. There's signs of scorching still on the walls of this that allows you to date this perhaps a century or two ago. Is there anything you want to do in that structure while Marmaduke is away?
I think he wants to check the floor just to try and clear away some of the debris from the floor of the structure, because if it was standing for some time, there's a chance that if there's anything below this, that the entrance might not be fully clogged.
And no archaeologist ever travels without a trowel. So I think we see you on your knees, kind of scraping stuff away. Cut back to Marmaduke and George. George, you were about to say something, I think, in response.
I was just about to make a very past remarkable comment about a site on a site on a site. I said Torpenhow Hill would like a word, but.
I mean, Vincent may be onto something here. This could be a academic find for yourself, for Vincent, and for myself. It intersects all our respective fields.
We shall have to publish.
Cut to Hadrian.
Indeed. Vincent had already mentioned this. Should we head over and see what Vincent is up to? You first, my friend. You first.
Cut to Hadrian. Hadrian, you're kind of making your way around the site, and you can see the three of them. You can see two of them converging on this structure. Do you go to rejoin them, or are you content to continue alone?
Well, I haven't found anything of interest so far. Maybe what they found might be more interesting than just poking at stones. So I will amble over. No hurry, of course, but I will amble over and also will watch George a bit more carefully. even though I know this was just the brandy from last night talking to me. Brandy and port is not a good idea. Should have remembered.
So George and Marmaduke are heading there. Vincent, let's see what you find. So 2d6, the d8 if you'd like it.
All right, looks like a 6.
There we go. Oh, so a 6, and it's right. So 6, success. You're scraping down, and you find some bones. Charred bones. Or bones you would recognize as having been charred, and you would date it, unless you want a different extra benefit. I'm going to give you the extra benefit of dating it to the time that a fire took this place, a century or two ago. Fair enough?
Yes, excellent.
And do you share that with Marmaduke and George when they come around the corner? Shortly followed by Hadrian?
Yes, watch where you step. There's I have found I have exhumed remains. It appears as if somebody was in the building at the time of the fire.
Oh, tragic, tragic.
Maybe you were trying to burn a witch. I'm sorry, my mind wanders.
And as you are looking down to Vincent scraping this away, you hear somebody comes up behind you and says, "Bones."
I shake myself. What? After brandy, such a bad idea.
Spin round.
There's nobody there. I'd like you all to make a fear roll, or call on your unshakable belief. Marmaduke, what's your preference?
As this was at one stage a place of God, I believe God is on my side. This is a place of God.
Fair enough. So if it's relevant, invoke your unshakable belief, roll the light and dark d6s. You would like the light one to be higher.
It is.
Reduce your doom by 1, because God is on your side. Vincent, does this play into your unshakable belief, or will you fall back on just fear?
I think in this instance, because I'm in the middle of making an important discovery, I think it does fit into the unshakable belief that the universe is looking out for me. I think I was supposed to find this.
Exactly so. So if you're unshakable belief, then let's have you roll the pale and the darker d6s, and you are looking for the pale one to be higher. Oh, but it's not.
It is not.
So the dark die is higher, the fear die is higher. Doom increases by 2. The universe is looking out for you, but is it guiding you in the right direction? George, is this? Can you link this to your tragic background? Because the bones appear to have at least needed to be exhumed.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we hear ghostly voices immediately upon remains being unearthed, being buried, charred or otherwise, seems close to me. So I'm rolling 2d6 right there.
You are.
A 1 and a 6.
6. You are terrified. Increase your doom by 2.
Wow.
That dice roll is the wrong way around in my view.
Should I do a roll too?
Yes, please.
And what do I roll? My unshakable belief is obviously playing a role here.
Yeah,
so
I don't think it plays into your unwittingly killing someone.
No, probably not. I've rolled a 1 on the shakable belief and a 4 on the light die.
So that your belief outweighs your doom. You decrease doom by 1.
Nice.
Because this is all just the drink.
Yes, exactly.
But I think that is the logical place for our next commercial break. So I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute break, and
Yeah.
we're back in our seats at 5 to the hour. Does that seem fair?
Oh, yep.
Okay.
Do that.
So we come back from our commercial break, and I'm going to do a bit of hard framing now to move us on, because I think the logical next step, having made that discovery at the ruins, is perhaps to seek out young Jamie. And so I think I see you heading down towards the beach. I think I see you heading down towards the beach at the other end of the village. There are some fishing boats dragged up, just, small fishing boats, little more than large rowboats dragged up onto the beach. And there's a hut at one end of the beach that is that is just constructed from driftwood. And I see you approaching this driftwood hovel of young Jamie, because you asked where young Jamie was to be found at the pub, and they pointed you down in this direction. So, who's got the lowest doom at the moment, and the highest? Oh, wow, doom! Well, oh, George and Vincent, it's racing away, because you are increasingly obsessed with this mystery, and so I think I'm going to go with George as briskly walking ahead, obsessed to find out what's with young Jamie. And as you come around the side of this driftwood hut, you see what you could only take to be at least a middle-aged and maybe quite old man. But what's odd is that under his peaked fisherman's cap, you can see that there are bandages wound round his head, covering his ears and round his head, and as he turns to face you, over one half of his face. And the other eye looks at you. What do you do, George?
Well, I'll say good afternoon, because we're still Englishmen, god damn it, even if we're doomed.
English gentleman, damn it.
English gentleman. Tell me, good sir, you wouldn't happen to be Jamie, would you?
And the eye goes wide, and he stands up and kind of moves away from you, stumbling slightly away from you. Vincent, you're next on the scene. What, if anything, is your response to this man kind of backing away from George?
We've been to the ruins and perhaps have seen whatever it is that you saw. We'd like to talk about it.
I think I need to know how that goes. So I don't think it's got anything to do with archaeology. So it's a D6 and a D8 if you'd like it, Vincent.
Of course, I'd like it.
Have you calmed him down?
It's 5.
5. Okay, on a 5, he does calm down, but the look in that one eye is just he's frightened. Next on the scene, I think, is Hadrian, who, having had a quick run of doom early on, is now much calmer.
Yes,
And less obsessed. So Hadrian?
It's going to be fine. I am a little surprised that people call this man young Jamie, but these country folks, they have not. And also, I know a fellow who is called young Professor Marmalade. No, probably not. Young Professor Morrison, and who is quite old. So this might just be a moniker. I'm not worried. I think he might be a little weird, strange, because of the injuries. Were they from a dog?
Well, I don't think there's any sign of it from a dog.
Good.
But
Jolly good.
he's maybe it wasn't so much what you said, Vincent, as your tone of voice.
Oh.
That calmed him down. And he doesn't respond to Hadrian one way or the other. Last on the scene is Professor Hussey. Oh, Paul, can you update your Zoom? But do that after you tell me what you're doing. Oh, that is absolutely spot on for a hovel on the beach. Thank you. I'm very impressed. So, Marmaduke, you're the last person to come around the corner and see this kind of vague standoff.
I think this has reached for the thermos. Hot cup of tea, my friend?
Oh, yeah, I like that. So I don't think it's got anything to do with theology.
No.
And unless perhaps it is the gathering swine and how to deal with people who are concerned. So I think I'll give you the benefit. You can have 2d6 and a d8 if you want it.
Why not? I think that is perfect.
Theology is the closest we have to a soft skill.
Yes, looking after the well-being of the flock, and that is a 7. Is the highest dice.
So he kind of timorously reaches out to take the thermos of the cup of tea from you.
The lid of tea.
The lid, yeah.
The lid of tea. Yeah. Do you mind if me and my friends sit down as I sort of look? Clearly, there's no proper seating.
No, there's bits of driftwood scattered about that you could sit on. Yes, and as all three of you kind of make what best you can of the available seating, he warms his hands and you see the steam rising up, and the kind of that eye becomes.
Some people in the village have had some very good things to say about you, Jamie. Do you mind if I call you Jamie?
And he points at his ears and indicates he can't really hear what you're saying.
Well, last night we saw a big dog. Do you know of the big dog?
I'm very happy for you to try to get something out of me on that basis.
Yeah, well, I'm an Englishman. Clearly, if you speak to somebody that can't understand your language, you just speak louder and slower. It always works.
Given that you got a 7, I didn't ask you what the extra benefit was. I think what he does is he takes off his hat and begins to unwind the bandage that covers one eye and his ears, and it kind of, and he piles it up, and then you can see him working at his ears, and he pulls what looks like kind of a wodge of cotton and wax out of his ears, and puts them in his pocket, and then looks up, and one half of his face is disfigured by flame. He's been badly burned, Marmaduke. Would you roll for fear?
Well, indeed. So
2d6, because this is absolutely in reference to your tragic background, I think. Unless you want to rely on God.
Well, I've rolled the dice already, so it'd be wrong to say otherwise. So the dark dice is higher.
Fair enough. Then you increase
by 2.
Goes up by 2. Doom goes up by 2. And he says in a quavery voice, I keep the voices out.
Oh, my poor child, my poor child. What has happened to you?
Now, Hadrian, you had this strange whispering experience when you were on your own, and now he's talking about banging up his ears with wax to keep the voices out.
Well, that has nothing to do with me. Clearly he is mad and I am not.
Arrogant self-belief.
Absolutely, yes. You want me to roll, I assume.
I think I would like to know whether this.
Yes.
I think we're back on your unshakable belief, aren't we?
Absolutely.
This
oh,
can't be about you.
It can't be. I've rolled a 4 on the dark die, and it's higher, so I guess I'm taking 2 doom, right?
You are. You are.
Oh, so whatever my rational mind is telling me, I'm an art professor, and the art is not about rationality, unfortunately. So I am a little like voices. Should I make? No, I won't. I'm a professor. I'm a rational man. God damn it.
George, Vincent. Let's start with Vincent. What if anything are you doing in response to him talking about? I tries to keep the voices out. Vincent,
And
what are you thinking?
how
What's your thinking at this point?
how long has that worked?
It don't work all the time, but it works down here. I think tis the sea. Tis the sea that keeps the voices away. But when I go up to the pub, oh, the voices do come back.
And
Sure? No, go on, Vincent.
when have there always been voices?
She whispered to me. She whispers to me when she whispered to me first when I was a lad. And then she came to me and I tried to be polite and offered to shake her hand. And she took my hand and did burst into flame. And he pulls off a mitten, and you can see that his right hand is burned to the point where it's little more than a fin.
I'm terribly sorry that you had such a terrible experience.
The old mother, she don't come often, but when she do come, she never brings good things with her.
She still comes.
I don't know, but nobody goes up the ruins for fear she do. You don't want to be disturbing the ruins unless the old mother comes.
Ah.
Vincent, having disturbed the old ruins, I'm just curious whether your belief that the universe is looking out for you is still entirely intact. So can I have you roll the dark and the pale d6?
You sure can.
Oh, a tie.
Ooh,
I think the tie
tie.
breaks your way. Let me just check. If belief is equal to or higher than fear, decrease doom by 1. The universe still wants you to be interested in this. George, what about you? What, if anything, do we see you doing, saying, or thinking in this scene?
Well, I'm maybe following up on Vincent's line of questioning, wondering about this being, this old mother, whatever we're calling it, and this is, does she appear at dusk or whenever you come to the ruins?
I was just a boy, and she did come when I went up there. I went up there as a dare. I was dared by Peter Peters, and Peter did say he said I was too feared to go up to the ruins. So I went up to the ruins, and she was there, and I was polite to her. I was real polite, and then I heard her whispering, and then she was there, and then she there was burning, and I ran for it. I ran for it. I ran for it. I ran for it. And sometimes I see a shadow of her. Sometimes I do.
And can you describe the shadow or describe how she looked when first you met her?
I think I need you to convince him to
Yeah.
relive this trauma, George. I'm not sure your medieval history is going to be much help, so I think
Unlikely.
it's a D6 and a D8 if you'd like it.
I think I'll use the D8, and maybe I will plumb the depths of what I saw on the ridge the first night. Also, if it I got a 5.
5. I think that's enough to have him tell you that you know when she's around because you hear the howling. You do, and she do bring her dog with her. Because what I was told when I was a babby was that they burned her dog with her.
Quite savage to burn a dog.
They burnt her in the monastery. Is that what you think?
Up among the ruins. That's why Grandma told me. She said her mother was there.
That would be consistent with what we discovered.
Oh, right, hang on. And he looks over his shoulder as if to say,
Cover your ears again, young Jamie. Cover your ears.
I don't like to be impolite, but I thought I heard something then.
Well, you've been very helpful, Jamie. I think you can mind your own business again. Don't mind us.
So thank you, sir. And he, he plugging up his ears and winding around the face and putting his hand back in his mitten, and he says, "Could I trouble you for another cup of tea?"
Looking around his shack, does he have a vessel?
He has a tin mug.
I will top up his tin mug as I recover the lid of my thermos.
And as we see you moving away, he's hunched, facing away from you, and steam is rising around his head.
My friends, we are men of God and men of science. I don't believe we should wait for fate to summon this so-called ghost. I think we should indulge another mechanic and see if we can summon it ourselves.
Don't you think some holy rites to put the spirit to bed might be in order? After we take some notes.
I think so. I have studied some texts within the Church of England on how to perform such an act. Hopefully, my friend Professor Ward has got something we can use to for such a ritual to take place.
So are you speaking of an exorcism or a seance? I'm a little confused.
Summoning, an exorcism, something along those lines. We need to, yes. Basically, I wouldn't mind seeing this as breaking the fourth wall here. I wouldn't mind seeing a sorcerous ritual. Because it's the mechanic we haven't used.
It's the mechanic you haven't used.
There's only 3 mechanics there. 4 if you include Op Doom.
I mean, it's the only button we haven't pressed, and therefore we
I would like to
press.
storm up to those ruins and do a sorcerer's ritual.
What could possibly go wrong?
I think.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say. I think that probably because there is something else we haven't touched on yet, and we might be able to bind these together. You need access to a particular book because you've read books, but there is a Catholic text on the summoning and exorcism of spirits, of unquiet spirits, and I think that that the family,
the texts are buried in that crypt.
That the texts, the library, there's a library up at that castle, which is extensive. And it might have been something you might have been quite interested to go and visit if you hadn't been distracted by this goings on at the ruins.
Oh yes, and I have been in a séance before, of course, and
Art history is
as you do,
rife with it. Automatic
yes,
writing, being
yes,
possessed by the spirit of some long
it
dead artist.
does. Yes, it was an interesting experience. It was not, of course, it was a fancy. It was not something serious we did, but we could try this. Of course, we should go to the castle and have a look at their library before we do that, because we don't want to risk the wrath of the spirits, do we? Or want to
Of course
call
not.
Madame Blavatsky. We could also do that, but I think she's alone at the moment.
So, unless you have any better ideas, I'd like to quite cut to the castle.
Totally agree. Looking at the time.
Exactly so. Cut to the castle, and I mean, at the front end of this, it looks like a manor house in the sense that there's a big door. You have to go through the surrounding walls, but the house inside is this remodeled Regency confection. And given that you know the book you're looking for, Marmaduke, I'm going to assume that you pull on the big bell.
Ding.
And a butler sharply arrives at the door. Yes, sir.
Me and my colleagues here are in the area doing some research. We were wondering if we could have a small word with the owner of the establishment.
If you'd come this way, gentlemen, I will see if Sir Geoffrey can see you. Very nice. Domes the full Monty, and he leads you into a kind of receiving room, where you wait for 5 minutes or so, and then a man comes, quite young man, comes into the room and says, "I understand you'd like you needed to have a chat with me." And you all turn towards him, and he says, "Oh my God, Vincent, this is Geoffrey Hamilton, Sir Geoffrey Hamilton, the other survivor."
Of course.
Vincent, are you still convinced the university's looking out for you? Or is this straightforward, "Oh my God, it's him"?
No, I think I see this as a positive sign.
So let's have you roll the dark and the pale and see whether your belief is stronger than the trauma this raises.
Nope. Dark eye.
Doom goes up by 2.
Ooh.
At the point you become obsessed, all it means is that you have to include a D8 every time you roll, so that it gets slightly steeper. And he is shocked. Vincent, after the shock, what? Because now you have to think about what happened. What look will replace the initial shock on his face?
I think he pastes a smile on, but it doesn't reach his eyes. He's just
Fine.
Geoffrey, old chap. It's been too long.
Far too long, isn't it?
I
What
didn't realize you were out here.
Family pile, death of an uncle. It's all mine now.
Oh, of
Funny
course,
old
of course.
bugger, a line of funny old buggers. Now, I think what's the look on your face that reflects that to Doom?
So I think that it starts as a smile, and I think it just kind of melts. Everything that Sir Geoffrey says just kind of brings Vincent down a little bit. As being inevitably, we're going to end up having a conversation that neither of us want to have. we're both going to avoid it as much as possible.
Now, Marmaduke, this greeting kind of lapses into an awkward silence. You're interested in having access to his library. What approach do you take?
Yes, clearly Vincent's a little bit bedazzled. Yes, pleased to meet your acquaintance. I am Professor of Theology, Marmaduke Hussey. This is my friend, Dr. George Aldthorpe, and Professor of Medieval Studies, and my younger friend here, Professor Hadrian Barrow, art history from the university. Pleased to meet you.
Hadrian, you talked about some frescoes here.
Yes.
What do you want to have a look at those?
I would love to have a look at those. I will immediately jump at the chance to compliment him on the renovations made by his forebears to this castle. Quite amazing. And I have heard that there are some frescoes that have been newly-ish installed. I would, if I could have a chance to look at those, I would be so grateful.
Yes, my uncle. Well, you tell me, because I'm still not entirely certain, Hadrian. Are these frescoes the ones that were put in when the building was renovated
Yes.
in the Regency?
Yes.
Okay, so they're
Yes.
they're 100 years old,
Yes.
broadly.
Yeah.
Then yes, he'd be happy to show them to you. If Professor Hussey wants to examine his library. George and Vincent, I suppose I need to know whether you want to go to the library with Marmaduke or to look at these frescoes with Hadrian, or whether you want to stay here and while the butler serves you some tea. And then sneak off and search the place. I'm just curious.
I'll head to the library.
Okay, so Marmaduke and Vincent. George, what about you?
I mean, I'm avoiding the frescoes at all costs, really, but I think I'll just have a nose around, maybe on the way to the library.
Just
I want
drift
to
away.
I want to get a look at the people who were here, maybe when this poor woman was burnt to death.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. So have a word with some servants, perhaps.
Oh, clearly there's got to be a massive
portraiture.
picture.
Yeah.
There's got to be a massive picture of some people standing over a burning witches.
Well, let's see what we
On the
find, shall we?
staircase.
So
They love keeping the receipts, the English gentry, do they?
Maybe there's a frieze of it.
Well, funny you should say that, Hadrian, because when you are led off by Geoffrey up to it's a long gallery, and along this gallery are these friezes done in the Regency style of a witch burning. And there are slightly poetic versions of the monastery, probably looking in slightly better condition 100 years ago, and a group of Roundheads, Cromwellian soldiers, dragging a young woman towards a corner of the site that you have now visited, and then the climactic scene in this sequence along this long gallery is indeed of her and her dog, and there's a soldier throwing the dog into the flames. I've just realized I've just realized that we have a veil on harm to domestic animals. I apologize. Looking as though he's going to throw the dog. So we don't actually see it happen. And then Marmaduke comes up behind you, Hadrian. Oh yeah, go on.
Oh, Marmaduke comes up behind. I will ignore Marmaduke. I will ask, because I'm good at ignoring people, I will ask Geoffrey about this whole thing. This is very specific. I assume this actually was something that happened.
In which case Marmaduke doesn't turn up. Instead, he turns towards you, and you hear him say, "Bones," but his lips didn't move. Sorry, what was the question? Because you kind of go a bit blank suddenly.
Yes. Well.
Shall we see how that fear manifests?
Yes. Maybe we should. Before I continue to blather along, I will rely on my arrogant self-belief because
Of
that
course.
is very useful. And I rolled a 6 on the Doom die, so I think
wow! So
I think I get
Doom
2
goes up by
dooms.
2.
I'm fine. I'm still fine. Yeah, this is not well. Anyway, yes, where I was wool gathering, I apologize. I was just so fascinated with these friezes. The style is exemplary. The subject matter is quite fanciful. This didn't really happen, right? This is England after all.
Family history says it did.
Oh, my dear. How horrible.
Puritans.
Yes.
Puritans.
Yes, they were horrible people, right? But the friezes, however, they are commendable. Really,
Yes, I never really understood why my uncle insisted on having this put up, because we were on the side of the king rather than Parliament,
Huh.
and we were rather exiled while the Puritans were in place. We weren't here, or the family wasn't here, and yet my uncle was quite insistent when the renovations were done that this story should be told.
Huh.
Not entirely certain why.
Well, I mean, if it really happened, maybe there's a lesson about moral rigor, I think, when it
Yes.
overcomes rational belief.
Yes. The only thing he said to me, I hadn't seen the old man for a number of years, but the only thing I remember him saying at the time was something, well, my uncle saying about it, was that what his grandfather had said, the chap who did the work, had said that he didn't want that Puritan to be forgotten. The family didn't want him to be forgotten. I didn't quite understand that. At which point I think we'll cut to the library, where Marmaduke and Vincent have arrived while George takes the long route. So Marmaduke, Vincent, what are we're looking for a certain Catholic tome?
Yes, with most haste. We need to find it before midnight. The witching hour.
So I think that both of you are good at libraries. So if one of you fails, the other one will succeed. But I think that given that Marmaduke knows exactly what he's looking for, let's have you roll 2d6 with the option on a d8.
I am very much of the opinion of use the d8s. And 5, 5, and a 7. So that's pretty good.
Okay, so I don't think Vincent is looking on one side of the library, you're looking on the other, and you find the book fairly quickly. And it is the original 1500 edition. Cut to George. George, the butler leads them off to the library, and you hang back because you notice, well, who do you notice? Maid, housekeeper? Who do you want to interact with?
I think the housekeeper who knows where all the bodies are buried, metaphorically or even literally, might be ushering me over to have a quiet word, or maybe.
Well, I think you approach her. She's busying herself at some, linen cupboard or whatever, and you turn up, and she turns and says, and drops you a little curtsy. Sir, how can I help you?
Oh well, I'm looking for some family history, really. As part of our research. I wonder, given that the family are so modest, any families, histories or stories you've heard locally you think we really ought to include?
Well, I mean, my mother or my grandmother or my great grandmother all worked in the house. Um, what is it you were interested in knowing about?
Oh, maybe the way the family has protected the town from, the kind of evils that we don't mention.
Oh yes, I can tell you that. Um, when the king was put back on the throne in the olden days, um, then it would have been Sir Geoffrey's great uncle, I think. Um, uh, he came back and took possession again, and they hunted down that man who killed.
Herself.
I understand her name was Patience. They hunted him down, cross hill and dale. They hunted him down like a fox, and brought him back and hung him till he were dead in front of all the village.
And presumably they didn't bury him on hallowed ground. Where might his remains be?
Oh, that I wouldn't know. My great grandmother and the story I don't tell anymore. Just that he was hung.
Ah, what was his name? This Puritan fellow.
Oh, he were called Blessed by God Francis.
Ah, okay, yeah, yeah.
Was there anything else I could help you with, sir?
Well, I think we'll have a round of tea before we leave. Maybe in a flask, as I think we'll be out camping late tonight.
Oh dear, right. Well, I will ensure that you have a nice packed supper to take away with you. And she bustles off. And
Gotta have priorities.
As she bustles off, Vincent comes up behind you and says, "Bones." Oh, you are muted.
Bone. We should really get rid of those, or move them to a more suitable spot. Yeah, that's what.
When you say we, which we are you talking about?
Well, me and Vincent, of course.
Yeah, Vincent's not there.
Well, of course he's not there. Why would he be here? I mean, this is some kind of. Well, so long as it's Vincent talking in my ear, not anyone else, that's really what I have to be afraid of.
I think this relates closer to a near-death experience than anything else, if I'm honest.
I think Vincent is having a near-death experience. Well, I should go to his aid, really. But I'll roll both dice, both d6, and we shall see. 2 1s.
That works in your favor. So you reduce doom by 1.
Okay.
But then Vincent and Marmaduke do approach, carrying a book. Hadrian, what about you and Sir Geoffrey? Any more, or do you want to rejoin the others?
I will. I think in this instance, I feel a bit of urgency about laying to rest this witch, and then we can look at. Then I will come back and look at the towers and all that has been changed here. I will, lastly, excuse myself to Geoffrey. Would ask him if I might be back at a later point in the week, but that I have to go with my fellow professors to perform a scientific sort of endeavor.
And he says, very well. And as you turn away and head off down, you hear as though somebody banged on the back of the fresco, on the wall on which the fresco is marked.
Yes, we're going.
And he says, I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was in my mind.
I think we're back to arrogant self-belief here, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so let's roll both those d6s.
Yes, come here, my beauties. Oh, wow. I rolled a
Pair of
boxcar, I
sixes.
think.
Well, it works in your favor, so Doom goes down by one.
It
Um,
does? It's a 6.
it
Oh,
doesn't.
and Doom, it's good?
Uh,
No, 6
yeah,
is bad
there
on
were
Doom,
if
isn't it?
no no if belief is greater or equal to Doom.
Ah, I see, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, fine. So yes, I apologize profusely. It's I was in my mind. I had a very bad dream. You know, I drank port after brandy. That is not something you should do.
And I'm seeing all four of you coming back together at the bottom of this set of stairs as dusk begins to fall outside. It's January, it'll be dark by 4 o'clock. And Marmaduke is clutching this book with Vincent. George has appeared with packed suppers. And Hadrian is coming down the stairs, kind of shaking his head as if to say, that's bloody stupid. Um, And we see Geoffrey at the top of this set of grand staircase looking down on you. And his eyes bore into you, Vincent. Um, we really must get together before you leave, Vincent.
But certainly, I would love to get together for a spot of tea or a drink. Perhaps not this evening, though. We have other business to be about. I hope you will excuse us.
Of course. I always have. Um, I think cut to the ruins. Yeah. Um, uh, Dusk, it's dark by the time you get there. We know George has a torch, so that's fine. How's this going to go? Is this Marmaduke using his theological understanding of summonation? Yeah.
I think so. Quid pro quo, spiritu punto, curriculum vitae. Yes.
I think I will emphasize the aspect of us incorporating all the bones, dog and human, if such are found.
Do we need to separate them
So it
into two
says when
separate piles?
you carry out a sorceress ritual, one scholar takes the lead. I think that's probably Marmaduke, given the expertise we've got at play here. But add one extra d6 for every two other scholars involved. So is there anyone who doesn't want to get involved because you're not going to get the benefit of a d6 from them? The most you're going to get is an extra d6 for a pair of you. Now, Hadrian described a seance. So
Yes,
experience of seances, I think, gets you into the group.
Yes.
Do the other two of you join in anyway, even though there's only a mechanical benefit if one of you does? Or does one of you want to stay away from this? I mean, I'm wondering, I suppose, whether the universe is looking out for me, the universe rather than God. Vincent, to what extent do you think this is balderdash? Though you are most obsessed.
Yeah, I'm looking into that most obsessed thing, and I'm wondering if the universe is looking out for me and has brought me here to get resolution with Geoffrey and not to deal with this witch, perhaps.
So do you step away
Yes.
a pace or two as George and Marmaduke and Hadrian embark on this ritual? So you're going to be rolling, Marmaduke, 1d6, a second d6 for the pair of compatriots involved. Add any obsession die any of the scholars choose to or are required to use. So you could add up to 3d8.
Let's have 3d8, because what could possibly go wrong?
Yes, feel free to add my arrogant self-belief. That can't hurt, right?
So I'm seeing 2d6 and 3d8s in play. Look, I'll put another d8 because I was using one earlier on. I'll put it up near the other d8. If you want to put another d8 on the table, then you can roll all 5 dice, Marmaduke. And I this is summonation, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you want to question patience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go. That's lots of very high numbers.
That is lots of very
Two
high numbers.
sixes on the normal. Yeah. Is there any mechanical something's gone wrong there?
As long as that obsession dice does not come up one.
No,
None
no
of those.
ones.
Yeah, okay. So no field study. Check the highest result. The ritual succeeds with an added benefit.
Ooh.
So, George, what is the first sign that the ritual is working?
I think we have a glimpse of this building as it was immediately before the fire. You know, we maybe we see like a reflection off the glass that is no longer there in the windows.
I like that. Hadrian, what else? Now we've heard George describe something he sees. Hadrian, what do you feel that leads you to believe this is beginning to work?
What do I feel? I think there's a smell, if that's okay, and I think it's a smell of something burned. I hope Marmaduke's okay with that, but yeah.
Well, Marmaduke, I was going to ask you what you heard.
I think I hear a woman pleading. You know, it's not me, it's not me. And then some other voices, clearly some sort of
Yeah.
deep male
And
voice.
finally, Vincent, these are the signs of it beginning to take shape. What do we actually see on screen in terms of the summoning of this apparition?
I think maybe like a fog starts to come from the ground that looks thick and dark and smoke-like. And as it rises into the air and sort of thins out, there's maybe a shape in it, but it's hard to make out exactly. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it is something standing there.
So the ritual succeeds. You have summoned the spirit of patience, Marmaduke. What extra benefit do you get from this?
What we 1643. I think we're able to converse with her. You know, and I mean, is it okay to say that she's seeking release?
Yes. I seek release, and release will come with revenge. Burn his bones. Burn.
I will turn to Vincent.
Bones.
The bones, Vincent. The bones.
And then I think you hear a voice behind you. It's Geoffrey's voice. I'm really afraid I can't let you do that, gentlemen. Take them, he says. And as you turn round, a peculiar figure steps into the light that Patience is giving off at the center of this smoky and the flash of George's torch. And a figure dressed in ragged, moth-eaten Puritan clothes comes towards you, staring eyes, skin pulled tight across a skull. You see, I can't allow you to change the nature of the story. We have a reputation, you know. And it is clear that this is the dead blessed by God Francis. We were the Darcys, then we were the Francises, then we were the Darcys again. Now I'm a Hamilton. And this thing It is the taxidermist's taxidermied remains of God blessed by God Francis, and he's stalking towards you, swaying from side to side. Vincent, you're furthest away from the ritual, so you're nearest to Geoffrey and blessed by God Francis. What do you do?
I will back away towards the others.
I think I need to know whether I don't think there's anything to do with your trauma, or maybe yeah, Geoffrey, this is to do with your trauma. So I think
Yep.
I think this is a fear roll, 2d6, no d8. Let's see how you do.
Dark eye.
6. You are terrified. Increase your doom by 2, Vincent. George, who's most obsessed at the moment? Let's see.
Well, me now.
Yeah, yeah, by some way, yeah. So Adrian, how do you respond to this stumbling remnant of a witch burning?
Oh, I am insulted a little. I have still my walking stick, and I will lift it up like a good English professor and say, go back, go back. We are persifying the spirit here. The Puritans were very, very bad at art anyway. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Arrogant self-belief. Roll the 2d6, light or dark. Let's see
Yes.
which wins.
Oh, the dark one wins.
You start off with that, and then its glassy eyes look at you, and you are terrified. Doom goes up by 2 as you stumble away from it.
Ooh.
Next in our list of obsession is George. What's your response to this?
Well, it's funny that other people regard this reverend's arrival as a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing because how else could we have hunted down his bones? It's always darkest before the dawn.
It is. Let's have you roll that light and dark and see.
Well, I mean, I was thinking that I could take a spade to this thing's, face, but
let's see how it goes, shall we?
So what am I rolling?
You're rolling the 2d6, and you want the pale one to do best.
Okay. No. The higher one is a 3.
Doom goes up by 2. You are terrified. Marmaduke, you've got the tome in front of you, open on the summonation page. On the opposite page, there is the exorcism.
Well, let's read that.
Well,
see if we can.
Let's see if you could hold yourself together, shall we?
Okay.
God is always on your side. I think that unshakable belief is the pale dice. The dark fear of this. Roll the 2d6.
Dark dice is higher.
You are terrified. Increase doom by 2.
Still not too bad.
So what are we going to do? Who is most obsessed at the moment? It is. Oh, you are absolutely obsessed, Vincent. What are you going to do, Vincent? Because you need to resolve this, or you have to take first go at resolving this.
I will attempt to appeal to Sir Geoffrey.
Okay.
After everything we've been through, Geoffrey, is this how it ends?
I think this ties into your tragic background rather than your experience. So I'm going to let you get a D6 instead of field of study. No, D6 and D8. D6 and a D8 to convince him to
all right,
to talk about this.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm trying to move some things around just to identify which ones I'm actually rolling.
Is that a 6 and a 6 and a 6?
6 and a 6.
Success with an added benefit. Very well, Vincent. Step to one side. You know that if you ever share any of this, I'll tell the press what really happened. Hadrian, Vincent might be offered a way out of this. You are the next most obsessed. What do you want to do?
I want these Puritans, these horrible Puritans, to seize their shenanigans. That's what I want. And I will, I remember something from the seance. These are ghosts, presumably. At least there are some spiritual things about. So I remember from the seance that you could banish them, how you could banish them with the Lord's Prayer of all things. And while I'm not a religious man, well, there are things out there that are not in our school books. I know this because I'm an art professor in art.
Ah,
And anyway, I will recite the Lord's Prayer at them, like, go away.
be gone, foul creature of the night.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I don't think that's art history.
No, it's not.
So I think it's a D6 and the D8 if you'd like it.
Oh, I totally will take my D8. I mean, come on. It's a 5.
It's a 5. So I think our ancient witchfinder stumbles slightly in response to the Lord's Prayer. George, what about you?
Well, if there is a shovel around, or maybe
I
a
think there will have
dropped
been a
cane,
shovel. Yeah.
I'm getting down to brass tacks. The Lord's Prayer may get us so far, but
I'm seeing a shovel and a storm lantern as well as a torch.
I mean, I'll save the thermos of tea for later. So I
So
guess
you're going to try and swing. Going to take a swing at your assailant or at Jeffrey.
I think the assailant, Jeffrey. I leave that to his best friend.
Fine. I will give you a D6 and a D8 then, because I don't think it's got much to do with medieval studies.
No, not quite. I mean, I don't think going medieval on it has been quite invented or coined yet as a phrase. That's a 3.
A 3. Oh, how interesting. So on a 3, barely successful with a complication. You get in close and you swing the axe into the where the shoulder meets the neck of Blessed by God Francis, but you have to come close enough for him to reach out and grab the front of your shirt. So you're now caught up with our zombified witch burner. Marmaduke, what about you?
I would like to summon the dog to attack him.
Oh, sorceress ritual on your own though, because everyone else is busy.
Yeah, why not?
So you get to roll 1d6, and you can add an obsession dice. You can add, so it's a d6 and a d8.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, no, that's all it is. Theology, no field of study applies.
So I've got a 6 on the D8 and a 1 on the normal die.
So the 6 applies. The ritual succeeds with an added benefit. The dog manifests and leaps at the throat of Blessed by God. Or do you want him to attack Jeffrey?
Yeah, let's have Jeffrey go down.
So the dog manifests and leaps at the throat. So the black shook is at the throat of Jeffrey. Vincent, any deal with Jeffrey seems likely to be going off the table at the minute. What, if anything, do you do? Because clearly he thinks he knows something.
Yeah, we established earlier that a good archaeologist always has a trowel.
He does. What do you do?
Sounds like an improvised shiv, so I'm going after Jeffrey as well, while he's distracted.
D6, archaeology applies as a field of study. So 2d6 and a d8 if you want it.
I have to have the D8.
He has to have it.
Oh, you have to. Yeah, of course. You are obsessed now. Obsessed with whatever happened in South Africa not coming out.
Highest is a 7.
A 7. You plunge it in. Where do we see you plunge the trowel into his heart?
No, I think in the side, but between his ribs, under his arm.
Fine. and you know the strangled sounds of Geoffrey dying leave George and Hadrian doing what, George? Because the
Well,
dog and the trowel have forced, blessed by God, to release you. What do you do? You are the
well,
closest to him, though.
I'll be banging some bones loose if that's all right.
Yeah, let's have you roll again. Sadly, not an archaeologist, so you don't get to use the tool. So D6 and D8.
Okay. A 3 again with a 1 on my doom die.
Oh, so Doom goes up by 1 and barely succeeds with a complication. You do knock some bones loose, so one arm falls away from this stuffed. You know, you see the horsehair that he was stuffed with in 1670 or something. But in among that, you can see the bones. But he's got you again with the other arm. Hadrian, what are you going to do?
Ah, this is an electrical torch we have, right? We are civilized.
No, you have an electric torch, but also a storm lantern.
Oh, because
Which
I've
is
heard
oil
horsehair,
powered.
which is flammable, right?
Horsehair is flammable, as
Well, I think
is 200
George.
year old skin.
Yeah, I mean, George, move away, please. And then I sort of turn at this.
Well,
Well,
let's
I can't because I've been got again.
so let's see how this roll goes, Hadrian. D6 and D8.
Yes,
Do your thing.
that's a 6.
It goes. The added benefit is that none of that splashes onto George, I would
Yeah.
suggest.
Yes, that is an added benefit.
yes,
I am very happy to
Blessed by
accept.
God, Francis goes up in flames. And I think that you hear behind you, or a whisper comes to each of you, and it says, and you turn around and you see that dark smoke with the shape within it slowly dispersing. Oh, you are muted, Marmaduke.
No, that's okay. I'll speak to somebody else.
Oh, right. Saying there's 2 minutes left. And I think probably I'd cut to you where? Where do we see the 4 of you the following morning?
Church.
Do we all have to go?
And how, Vincent, have you covered up your murder of Sir Geoffrey Hamilton?
I think we had to have also burned his body.
And buried the remains in a corner of the ruins.
Of course.
People don't go there, so should be
And
fine.
that, with a minute ago, I think, is our game. Now, 1 shot in 3 hours, bit tight, but I think that's a decent point to call it. I would like to do a quick stars and wishes for those who can kind of stay over beyond the hour, but I quite understand if you can't. But what I do need to know is whether you are content for me to post this to the community. Thank you very much. I will do that. So any stars, any wishes, or feel free to cut and run if you can't stay. But
I might start because I do have to cut and run.
fine.
I love the stakes are so serious because they're so low quality of academic rivalry that we got going straight from the off. So yeah, that was and that kind of stayed on throughout. So that was yeah.
Yeah,
good.
surprisingly, you all got behind sorceress summonings before we were finished, but that's great.
Yeah.
Any thorns?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I've played a lot of Cthulhu Dark, so it's interesting to see a slight twist on that. I'm kind of interested with how the doom goes down as well as up. That's probably a thorn of many people from Cthulhu Dark, so it's interesting to see that being addressed in this way. So yeah, kind of interesting.
Don't feel you have to stay for the others.
Yeah, well, I'll catch the recording and then I'll leave you all go. Okay, thanks everyone.
Um, I'm struck, Mike, that it's late at night where you are, so I'm going to come to you next in case you want to cut to bed.
No, that's okay.
Any stars, any roses, any thorns?
I had a blast. I just wanted to carry on from the thing that Dana said because I had the reverse. For me, losing Doom was a thorn because I was trying to drive my character like a stolen car and get them doomed before the end, and it didn't happen. So
Yeah.
the luck of the dice were against me in that.
No, I know what you mean. It's a kind of balance point, isn't it? I did wonder whether a D8 would be better as a D6. For because I'd quite like to see Doom go up more, and on a 1 to 6,
it more likely,
it would go up faster, which might compensate for the going down. Anything else, or I'll move on because I am conscious I don't like to keep people after time.
No, I had a blast. I haven't played Cthulhu Dark, so this is my first exposure to the system, and it was simple but very playable, and I had a blast. Thank you.
Sabine, any roses, any thorns?
Yeah, I loved the characters. I loved the whole academic shenanigans that we were up to. They were also pretentious. It was so much fun. As to the system, I didn't mind Doom going down because it was like it went up, it went down, it went up, it went down. I had fun with that because it always felt like no, my character, no, okay, I'm fine, I'm fine. Yeah. So thanks for running.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. For what it's worth, I think next time I'd run it as a 4-hour one shot, which would probably take our obsessed archaeologist all the way to doomed. Is my feeling. Paul, any roses, any thorns?
So yeah, just the session, it was really good. The academic rivalry I liked. That was played well. I think switching then to points about the system. I think it was very good. I like that there's no combat mechanics in it, and I probably would run it as a totally non-combat game. Stress that from the start, really, because then I think it would put people in a bit slightly different frame of mind. I liked the Doom going down. I think that's probably maybe something that could be incorporated in other games because it's quite a quick mechanic rather than maybe say sort of like seek release from the stress. This could be another version. I think it's quite good. I like the idea that there were two things in the town. I probably we could have stuck with just one, really. It's still really well run, Alan, but we could have just stuck with the Abbey, I think.
I mean, I have to say that I used the random tables in the book to generate aspects of the mystery. And I happened to roll up 2 places, so I was keen to see how far we could get.
I think it's really good putting the 2 places there and then leaving it for the players to decide. I don't think you have to include both myself.
Yeah, I decided Jeffrey was going to be Vincent's nemesis from
Bear one. I thought he was going to be something buried in the tomb in the church, the book in the tomb. And probably the other good thing or about the system, if you maybe if you stole something from Jotunweird, you've got to build up some clues.
Yeah, I know.
Right, because we could just ramble around for a long time. I think something slightly tighter. You need to find 4 clues, and maybe that then allows you to do a sorceress. The sorceress deed thing. I mean, for my character, clearly a man of God, you're probably not really going to engage in a sorceress deed. I think it's a really good mechanic, but maybe that's because it's a non-combat game. Maybe that's what you need to force you to sort of see off the big bad at the end.
I mean, I have to say that the way that the random tables in the book worked was that what you had to do was just burn his bones.
Okay.
That was what was anchoring the entity as it's described in the book here.
I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be a sorceress.
I will play again.
Hang on. Say again, Sabine.
Maybe it doesn't have to be a sorceress ritual, just a ritual per se. It could have been a Christian exorcism thing, right?
Yeah.
I would definitely play more of it, and I think probably it's got It's got a slightly longer form, I think, than maybe a one shot, or
Yeah,
it could have.
I would have said
I would
so.
definitely play a 3 or 4 week run of it. I think it'd be quite good, especially if you get some sort of side characters that maybe could then replace some overly obsessed, which could easily become a baddie.
I think a
It seems
4 hour
good.
one shot or 2 3 hours is probably where it's at. I'm not sure there's enough in it to keep that going. And you know, my apologies if it ended up more Hammer Horror than M.R. James Ghost Stories, but you know,
No, didn't bother me.
that is probably a weakness on my part.
It's good.
But no, thanks for signing up for an unknown, relatively unknown game that we'd not played before. So with that, I will I'll stop the recording and say thank you very much. And thank you to Scott from, I just need to make sure I plug that again. Scott from Trollish Delver Games. We thank you.